So, Tyler, what did you think of the episode? I know there's a lot going on in this episode. It's a shame we don't have Dave because, like you said, off pod, this would be a great one to have all three of us to bounce off each other because so much happened. So, we'll get our thoughts out there on the board and then we could start going in our buckets like we always do.
Well, I think the nice thing here is I'm going to be honest right up front. I don't have any nitpicks on this episode. So that will make our podcast a little bit shorter. And I did want to give a shout out. We give a lot of shout outs to different characters, but really in watching this episode, for me, I just wanted to give a shout out to Joelle May David and Sarmad Masood, who are the two main directors of this season, because with so much going on in this episode, I think pacing in this show, it's always been one of its strengths. We talk about it all the time. You know, obviously the content that Hugh Howey's given the directors to go off of is the main strength of the show, but it's always been great at taking the viewer along, not feeling like you know too much before our main characters. And for me, this episode was packed with so much information, so much new stuff going on, which every episode has been, but we're all rise, like we mentioned over the last couple of weeks. So we're building that pressure cooker up. And our directors, Joelle and Sarmad, I mean, really kudos to you. I feel like this is just coming in for a very exciting landing in a few episodes. But episode 7. So we're going to keep it between our two silos, right? In silo 17, we've got Jules having an intellectual battle with Solo and consistently losing because the logic is typically in Solo's favor now that he's got the suit behind lock and key.
All the cards.
Yeah, he's holding all the cards. We had a lot of engineering and a lot of Daredevil antics without too much digging into and nitpicking how we got there, which again, I think is for the viewer great, all culminating in Jules learning how to swim as well as us getting an answer to, is there a third person in Silo 17, which we now know is true. All the while in 18, the political campaigns of Bernard and those up top kept moving, kept changing. There's a lot of stuff going on. We got an inside view of the vault as well as some looks into what a mechanical rain would be like and how it'd be different from what we've experienced. So we're keeping this character based. We have to, Jim. I just don't see another way. So where are we starting?
Do you want to do Jules and Solo first? Get them done?
Well, Jim, let me ask you. That's to go into Jules and Solo. What were your thoughts on how the mechanics went into that pulley system that she got down to the bottom of the 8 floors in? I will, and I'm going to answer my own question and then give it to you. But personally, that was something that I loved because as people that haven't read the book, my biggest shame, maybe before season 3, I will, who knows? That's something that like I can imagine is with Hugh being who he is, having worked with him a couple times now, I can imagine that like how she got down 8 floors, if that is even in the book, which I'm imagining it is probably very well thought out. There's a lot of logic behind it. They make it happen. But that's not particularly something that's super interesting to watch in a TV show. It's kind of like, okay, Jules has got to get down, show me that she can do it, and show me that, you know, it makes some semblance of sense. And I thought they really nailed that because it's like she's got to build an entire scuba system to go 8 stories down, and using Solo and just the well-timed, like, oh, well, you know, here's how you swim. These are the goggles. Like some of the things that we've complained about is we know Jules isn't going to die. Stop giving us this. Like, I thought that the Jules and Solo's portion of her going down on this deep sea mission that's on the directors for me. I thought they did a great job of just like getting to that. It moved, but it was also interesting just how they were interacting, all culminating in the finale of the episode. But so I'm answering my own question, but Jim, did what was your take on it? How'd you feel?
Yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed it as well. I thought that they gave us just enough, like you said, to explain how it works, what she has to do, and then they gave us just enough of what she had to do, right? So she goes down. There's not too much of while she's down there, oh my God, I'm blocked by a door that's closed, and what am I gonna do? And now I have to push it through with, whatever. Like she's just literally using her strength for everything in the other dive that she did, and banging on the locker doors and trying to get
Her
shit open.
tattoo, her shoulder tattoo as well. I forgot about God, I love
Yeah.
Jules. You kidding me? You
Yeah, she's
kidding me with
the
that?
best, man. She's the best. And yeah, she got down there. She got it working. I love the two sets of bells, the one that lets them know when to hit the power, the one that lets them know when to bring her up. And then to your point, Tyler, we know she's not going to die. And if you're going to hit us with something that's important where, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? It's the immediate result of, okay, I have to swim back up and I've made it, right? Not the suspense. And then we cut to another scene and what's going to happen to Jules, right? And now we have a situation where Solo's missing. There's an axe or a hatchet on the floor. There's some blood. I guess we have another entity in there. Now, who is it? And it's, again, Tyler, I know you don't like just throwing shit on the wall for no reason. We can make a million guesses, but um, to be honest, I'm just ready to watch it and let them tell me who it is. And I think it's going to be fun. I wasn't expecting, to be honest, I probably should have been, but I wasn't expecting that, right? I didn't think that the entity was going to stop it from happening and he would be missing.
Yeah, I agree. And what I also like before we get in, because that's right, we obviously need to finish this with just some thoughts um on how they brought in this third or maybe fourth, but let's say third because we're seeing it through the lens of one
Right.
person. I also like how, again, when you're watching the show as the viewer, you're going to be like, Jules has got to have some way to negotiate with Solo to just
Yeah, I
get her
know.
suit and come back. And it's almost like they use as an opportunity, which in a humorous way too, like it demonstrates Solo he is a kid that is book smart, right? Like he's just
Yep.
read. And now we've seen the vault, which we're going to get into a second, which was freaking mine, which was like
Oh, yeah.
such a big thing in the
Amazing.
beginning of the episode. They're just like, look at all this shit. There's a fucking
Yeah.
magic iPad in here. But he's, what we can assume, very well read, and he's
Yes.
read so much stuff. He's been obviously going down different wormholes, talking to the tablet, you imagine, to get all these things about the ocean and the bends. And it was also just great that like she's trying to have a logic battle with him, and it's kind of, and he's kind of like, I'm not giving you the fucking suit, like until you do this for me, like.
Yeah.
There's just no shot that I'm letting you out of here with the suit without you fixing this for me because I can't know if you're going to come back. And
yeah.
I thought, again, it's funny and it's good banter, but at the same time, it is necessary because as the viewer, you need to be bought into the fact that like Jules has to do this. And also Solo, it digs in a little bit more to his guilt of the fact that like he feels like he needs to be responsible for this. Obviously, he's done something we don't know yet to get in this position in the first place. I imagine we're going to learn more now, but I did like that back and forth answer questions. And I also I think we've been waiting for like, who is this third person? But it does make sense that like, when would they emerge? When another pulley system with a rope is used, because they cut it the same way that they cut Jules' rope in episode 1, right?
Yep.
So that was a great reveal when the rope comes crashing down and she's like, oh shit, now I've got to swim, right? Which was cool. Jules now knows how to swim, which is a big advantage in a drowned silo, or even when she gets back to her own silo. And it also makes sense that like now she's got to deal with this because Solo holds the key to her. She can't just be like, no, well, Solo's out of here, I can get the fuck out. Like, no, she needs Solo because and it makes sense why Solo might be, knocked over the head with a hatchet and out of it, but he's not dead, you have to imagine, because what does this person want with Solo? Well, they probably need Solo to get into the vault. They want to get into the vault. So I just think they've been kind of stringing out this long back and forth with Solo Jules, which appears that it's going to run the whole season.
Yeah.
But I've really enjoyed kind of the dance of that, and it hasn't felt like, as the viewer, we're like, God, can it just be over with yet? Like the
Right.
obstacles are coming, they continue to come, but in a very well timed and like feels like every episode I want more of it, which is really a hard plane to land, which
Oh
goes back
yeah.
to the directors in my mind.
It's very, very brave of them to decide that most likely this entire season she's going to be in Silo 17 and she's not going to get to 18 until most likely the finale or maybe the penultimate, right? And when I say
Or
brave,
maybe
I mean
never,
that
Jim.
right, maybe never. She might die, dude. She might get the bends, bro. Um,
Or they might have to colonize. She's fixing
bring
the
them here.
pump, the sump pump, so she might have to bring the mechanical over. Who
Yeah,
knows? The
and
world is our
like
oyster now.
it is, and you have Solo, Steve Zahn to help Jules, Rebecca Ferguson just run the show in Silo 17, so we're having a great time watching them. But like I said, as someone, meaning Jules, who was so popular, everyone loved the main character of Silo, to have her not return to 18 during this season. The braveness here is you are risking people being pissed, right? That she's on this side mission this entire season. And to your point, Tyler, they did a great job because to start the season when she was in 17, I think it was Dave, I can't remember, someone was theorizing that she might not get back at all. And I was like, dude, how are you going to do that? Like, what storyline can you give me for an entire season in Silo 17? Well, they did a great job. And to your point, again, with this episode, they're adding these obstacles and they're big obstacles. They don't bore me. I don't feel like they're purposely just like trying to stall or something like that. I'm very intrigued by what this mystery is. Who's the other person? What's Solo's actual story? I think we're guessing and theorizing, and we may be correct with what his deal is, but we don't know that. And Tyler, you said it a long time ago when it came to Solo. It was that he was very childlike, and that was your first theory. And now, as these episodes go on, it becomes more and more obvious. But this episode was so hilarious and so in your face about the fact that he's having a temper tantrum. He's banging his hand against the wall, and then he like opens his one eye when he sees that she's like, "Fine, dude, I'll freaking do it." Like it's just so funny and so obvious, and it has built throughout the season. And we'll talk about the vault when we get to Bernard and Lucas and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, he's had plenty of things to do in there. I envisioned the vault as like a small, like almost like the control room that Bernard has with the other judicial people and the people that are watching everyone on the cameras. I didn't expect this, right? I
So
know that
much
there was
more,
food in
yeah.
there. He gives her food, things like that. You can sustain life in there. We know that, but I wasn't expecting it to be like a freaking suite, that you can live in and just not ever get bored because there's all these books and you have Siri talking to you anytime you want. When Bernard was like, ask it, I thought, hey Siri.
Yeah, I was like, it is Apple TV, like
Yeah, right, dude. I knew
maybe
I
product
knew it wasn't gonna
placement's coming.
happen. Yeah, I knew it wasn't gonna happen, but I thought it would be hilarious if they did the product placement there. Hey Siri, what's the code for this? Or tell me anything about freaking numeric codes and
Yeah,
ciphers.
Hugh Howey wouldn't sell out. He wouldn't sell
Yeah,
out.
that's funny.
Well, Jim, before we get over, because we got to obviously the cliffhanger is a big thing.
Right.
But
But there's a
but
lot on the other
there's a
side of it.
lot on the other side. Give me one guess. I'll give you one guess. Who do you think our third person is in Silo 17?
I mean, I feel like it has to be the person that we talked about in the school, right? Like the classroom when he was bringing up the girl. Now, what are you saying? You think it's the
Interesting.
other?
I
You
think
think it's
there's
the
I
other
personally
solo or
so
the main
well
solo?
okay. I personally think that there's more than two options, but I think there's two options that seem to be on par with the show. The first would be his schoolmate, his classmate, who you referenced. And I think the second is um, Solo, the real Solo's wife, the
Wife.
woman that's in the
Okay.
pictures
Yeah.
with him.
Right.
My only reason for saying that, I guess it works for both too, is that like we've talked about it in past episodes. Um, this show is this show is really driven by the strong female characters and leads throughout every show. So it would make
Hmm.
sense that this person is also going to be one of those, like one of the women. Now, if we live in the world where we're saying the two bodies that are outside of the vault are Solo and maybe his wife, the real Solo and his wife, excuse me, then I'll go with the classmate. But
Yeah.
I don't know, but for me, I'm going to say that it's just a guess. But I'm going to say the classmate was more of just the
A
purpose of it
reminisce.
was to the purpose of it was to give you an inkling that he was a child when he got into
Right.
the vault, and then Solo having a significant other is going to be the 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 payoff. But that'll be something interesting to see because I think one of us will be right next episode,
Yeah,
hopefully.
I think so. And one of
But
us will
look,
be a chump.
yeah. I mean, is Dave just the chump for the rest of the
He's
season
the,
for not being on
he's
this
the
pod
chump
with
for
us?
not
I
showing
mean,
up for us right now, Dave.
yeah. Without further ado, though, let's get into the vault, which we've
Yes.
seen before the base of it.
Right.
When
And that's how
Meadows
I
is
pictured the entire thing. That
yeah,
was
I
it.
mean, I think we were joking before. Maybe it's like you touch a wall and it opens up. Oh no, there's just you can do that, but there's like like rooms and
Yeah.
mansions built off the side of it. Explains a lot why you can see it go like one thing that I thought of was maybe there's not a connection between the silos and IT. It's just the reality that that IT room is so big that it goes juts out from the
Far
silos
out.
that far now, right? Because
Right.
there is power. Literally, there's there's quarters. It's funny, Bernard says to Lucas, "Hey, there is food in here. It's not very good, but it'll get you by. We know. Poor Solo's been eating that for like 30
Yeah.
years, but we now know that it is literally there is nothing in there that references why 252 years ago the silo was built, which is the
Hmm.
mystery still to, but it's a mystery to Bernard as well. But what we do know is everything from our day and age is jammed in there. And the Wizard of Oz is going to be our turnaround. So I don't want to skim through it, but with Lucas, they get right to it. He is the shadow. Bernard hits on it in the episode. The curiosity that it possesses and the problem
Yes.
solving is really the key, which we talked about. With Lucas as a character, we were saying before, like we were joking about heel turn, things like that. Again,
Right.
the greatness of Bernard being our antagonist is the reality that he's also doing what he thinks is right. He's not a
Right.
necessarily overly sinister person.
Right.
So I'm going to pose this to you, Jim. Where do you think you see Lucas moving forward in this show? Where's he going?
Yeah. So I think that it will be technically called by the audience a heel turn, but I fully agree with you that you can't really say that just because we've been saying this the entire season that this is a very interesting TV show because you have someone like Tim Robbins portraying Bernard, especially showing this season that yes, he's our antagonist, he's our bad guy because Jules is our girl and she's our favorite character and we want her to be able to live the dream, right? But he is doing what he thinks is best for the people, the 10,000 people living in the silo. His job is to protect everybody and to not let them think that they should go outside. And again, now it's interesting, and we'll talk about it. Whether I would guess because there's an 18 on his keychain, he knows there's more than one silo. Obviously, we know 17 exists, all that kind of stuff. Like we know he knows that there's more people, but in his opinion and in his mindset, these 10,000 people might as well be the world to him, right? Like humanity to him. He needs to protect them like 17, 16, 15, 14, 13 all don't exist because we know 17 doesn't exist. 17 didn't make it, right? He's trying to protect
17
everybody.
died. Yeah, that's what he says. 17 has
Right.
died.
So he's the quote unquote antagonist. But what I think is going to happen with Lucas is I think that he's going to side with Bernard and I think he's going to side with knowledge and safety, but he's not going to be like, ha ha, Jules, I'm going to stop you. I think that he is going to stay on the side of Bernard, and he's going to quote unquote become an antagonist, but it's not going to be a nefarious thing. He is going to be Lucas, who believes that he's doing the right thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think the scene to me that was my favorite Lucas scene of the episode was when after he had learned, like, figured, put the pieces together that this was a numeric code and not an alphabetic code. When he comes back to Bernard, he's so naturally excited about it, right? It's not
Yeah.
like, and that is really what is driving him as a character. Like, all we knew about him last season before he met Jules is that, like, he was just driven by the curiosity of what's in the stars, right?
Yep.
Well, for a curious person, having a tablet that essentially calls up any and locates literature and papers and writing on anything that you want is like heaven to him.
Yes.
And it's not, it turns into the fact when he's kind of bringing his thoughts to Bernard, it's just a problem, a math problem or what have you to Lucas. And he's excited to explain what he's come through.
Right.
Bernard's like, well, what did you scan the page 77s and the rest of the books? He's like, fuck yeah, I did, buddy. Like, what do you think? You think I'm a chump? You think I'm Dave? You think I'm Dave? So I can see, I think they're doing a good job of letting you into, like, if push comes to shove and we get to a point where Lucas is going to have to make a choice of whose side he's on, he's going to be on the side of Bernard. And that is, again, going back to not only the storytelling, obviously the book is doing a great, is outstanding source material, but it is going back to the directorial side of things where, like, they went in 3 episodes from, like, him being in the mines and getting information from Meadows to me believing that, like, I can see they've done a good job of making me feel bought in that, like, he will be on the side of Bernard and it won't surprise me. And I also think the fact that he knew about stars when Bernard talks to him because Meadows told him, it was almost like Bernard getting an extra vote of confidence in the fact that, like, oh, well, if Meadows let this guy in, then she must have seen what I'm seeing. Well, now that we know what's going on behind the vault, we also understand why they need their own power generator to keep it going. Right. We also can understand why maybe somebody in judicial, like Camille, would want the ability to get in that. That is a pretty sweet vault, Jim. Like, there's some touchscreen stuff going on. It's looking real nice to me.
It is.
Before we swing over to Camille and Sims, who had a big role to play in this episode, anything else you think I'm missing on Lucas?
No, I don't think so. I just think that it's very intriguing to me, and I'm actually a little surprised that the vault doesn't have any answers about what happened. With Bernard saying that, I expected him to know something. And this is another kind of scenario where, as the shadow for Lucas, and then Bernard, at one point he was a shadow, and so on and so forth, you're buying into something, and to a lesser extent, it's like Billings. You're buying into something, but you don't know. It's faith, right? But you don't know why the silo was created, what the deal is with the outside. Actually, you just know you're going to die. Like, that's actually pretty surprising to me. Like, I really did think that Bernard would know something and we would find out through Bernard. And that kind of blows up our scenario with Meadows, and we'll get into that because we are going to get a little bit more information about Walk and 25 years ago with Carla. Meadows 25 years ago. Like, our guess was that they found out that the world will never be better, right? It doesn't seem like, they could have found that out by, that's the code. That could be the answer. We know that there's a problem that they're trying to figure out through this code. And it's funny that you say Lucas was so excited to figure out the code and he's going to get us some answers. He broke it. He comes to Bernard. He's like, yes, I did it. It shows you the curiosity. It shows you everything Bernard wants to know. But it's funny, and I say it's funny because the solution, the answer equals, oh, I found this code, but what they're telling me is something that is deathly wrong, gravely wrong, that we need to figure out, and we need to save the silo somehow. So I don't know. Maybe the 25 years ago thing has to do with this code, and we know that there is a little bit of an inkling that it has to do with the code. But yeah, I was surprised that Bernard knew nothing. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, look, we know that Bernard isn't necessarily the most trustworthy narrator, so we'll see what he actually knows. I started to get the feeling when we talked about it when Meadows says, in before her death, what did they do to this place? What did they do? He doesn't know either. But I think that leads us to the rebellion isn't the top thing on his mind. There's something else on
Right.
his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, and I don't know if there's any clues that we're supposed to know. For me, I'm kind of taking it as like with Jules being able to just completely get past his algorithms, right? It's also bringing his mortality into question and his mindset of like, what is the end game of these silos? And that is maybe the bigger problem that he's thinking about. I did want to say, thanks to our friends at Google, you
Mm-hmm.
are able to just look up, what is page 77 of the Wizard of Oz. And page 77 is the page is summarized by it's when the Witch of the North gives Dorothy a kiss on the forehead, and essentially it leaves a shining mark on her. And she tells her that the road to the Emerald City is paved with yellow brick and that she should tell her story to the Wizard of Oz when she arrives. So
Mm-hmm.
if I don't want to get too nebulous with this here because I do want to. This is stuff. This is the unanswerable types of things. But like, did the director of IT 140 years ago? Excuse me, I'm forgetting his name, but
Salvador.
Salvador. Did Salvador learn? The real reason somehow that there was a why they're in the silos, and is he essentially saying by page 77 their only job is to essentially tell their own story of how they got where they are to the next generation, let
Mm-hmm.
alone, I mean, there's so much that we could take off that, but it is interesting
Right.
that all of this is a code dating back to page 77 in the Wizard of Oz, which we know is her, was Meadows' prized book.
Yep.
And
Yep.
page 77 is them saying, hey, there's a yellow brick road. Like, go fucking tell your story to the Wizard of Oz, who we know is a fake.
Yes.
Kind of bringing back like what is the real purpose of our lives in this silo? It's not to get out, it's just to live our lives in this silo and tell our story to the next generation, somewhat similar to what we're doing in this world right now. I could keep going, Jim. I don't want to, and all of a sudden we'll be on simulation theory before we know it. So but but I do want to say, to me, the 25 years ago, the what we know about what happened and that turned the fates of Carla and Walk and and Meadows. I think we're getting closer even with next
Yes.
episode. We're flipping to page 77. It'll probably happen before we even get to the goddamn opening credits, knowing how this show
Yep.
moves. And with that, we've got Bernard looking to uncover something, and Camille and Sims really playing counterpoint to Bernard in this episode. So Bernard sees a bigger threat, which I guess, are we on the same page that maybe he's thinking the bigger threat is kind of like the world that they are a part of, and how, like, what is really the meaning of being in this silo and what is the end goal? Um,
Right.
and if we can agree on that, then it is like that quickly is his attention is diverted when he sees this missile, this gunpowder missile, which they've got some. I, I don't want to get into how they knew that wasn't just going to crash through the top of the silo, right? Just kill them all right on the spot. But whatever. It was a cool scene, and
Yep.
he's kind of coming to grips with the fact that he really doesn't have many friends in the silo, right? He's got as Common, as Robert Sims tells him so eloquently, you've got Lucas Kyle and you've got, Amundsen, who is pretty incompetent at every turn. But Bernard he's going through these things in real time. He's able to spin things. He knows he's losing. He can tell from talking to his deputies that he's losing control. But he's not only in this episode being rewarded in some ways with he's got Lucas Kyle. If Lucas Kyle is one of his guys, then he's somebody that's maybe cracking this code that he could never crack and only Meadows did in a couple days. Mm-hmm. And if Amundsen is his only guy in security, Amundsen is coming to him with the realization that Walk and Carla can be played against each other. So this episode kind of ends for us on Bernard's side with him being like, the kids are going to be okay. I think I might have
some W's.
Yeah, I'm getting some W's, and I'm also making Sims get a little bit of a side eye towards Camille, who is kind of running the game for him.
Yeah, she's running solo. Yeah, I just want to say really quickly, the missile thing, I was so confused because I was like, what are they doing? Like, are they attacking the top side and they're just going to blow things up? Like, what the hell is that? And I really thought it was cool how when they were in the vault, it's the vault, the tablet, Siri, whatever, saying, Bernard, there's a Delta level event happening currently right now in the silo, which is cool as shit because it just shows how technologically advanced they are when in the certain situations, in the certain scenarios, in the vault. They don't want to be technologically advanced to the people of the silo, but they have the ability to do so. And we'll get into the power being in IT. You already alluded to that because it's just so it needs it. But that's obviously important for a question we were asking with Solo. How was he living? Why were there lights on? IT has its own power source. But yeah, I thought it was really cool when it talked to Bernie and said, we'll get into that, Tyler. But and said there's a Delta level event happening. And I thought it was cool. Like, I really did. I thought that, collecting the papers to write the notes and having the notes flying all over the place, I thought it was a really cool thing. And again, I'm assuming, like you're assuming, that it's probably in the books, but if it wasn't, kudos to them because I did think it was cool. But you're right. Like, how did they know it wasn't going to just blow through the freaking ceiling and kill everybody?
I know that they're in mechanical and they get stuff done, but I didn't see many physics textbooks down there. But who knows? I honestly don't want to even. I'm going to gloss over that because of how cool it was. Yeah. But
agreed.
Man, our vocabulary has been spot on, Jim. I think we just said the word cool. It was Nito burrito. Sims and Camille. I keep waiting for this blow up that, like, they've told us now that their relationship is strong enough that it's going to be able to withstand. But at the end of this episode, essentially, it is Common Robert Sims coming to grips with the fact that he's been a pawn to Camille. She's running her plays and he's on the outside. They're not doing this together. And she's playing both sides of the fence. Whether or not he would have agreed with her tactics, he is not the one making the decisions here.
Right.
Why I think that's important is obviously. And Jim, I want to pass it to you for your thoughts, but we need them playing both sides of the field if Judicial is going to be a positive resource for our friends in Mechanical. But on the flip side, the seeds of distrust have been sown. And, for me, for what it's worth, from my view, I feel as though we're going to get to a spot where those seeds of trust are going to distrust rather are going to sprout, and we're going to see either Robert Sims or Camille Sims going out to clean or something by the end of them pretty soon. What do you think?
So you think that the trust between the two of them, or the trust
between the two of them? I think the rift has been sown. I
agree.
Yeah, like they kind of come to reconciliation at the end of this episode, but
I feel like the silo allows Bingetown TV / the Core podcast to be played, and Sims listened to the fact that he was chump of the week last week, and now his eyes are open, man, wide
Yeah.
open, and
He's like,
he
whoa.
knows the deal. I mean, Bernard had to give him a little extra oomph to really persuade him that he was chump of the week, but he knows now. But yeah, I was thinking that maybe the conversation that they were going to have was going to turn into the theory that we had a week or two ago, and it wasn't all of us having this theory, but I think me specifically was saying, like, do I think that them as a tag team are going to try to take over the silo? I don't know that necessarily it's going there anymore. I feel like you're right where they're going to blow up before they are more of a team. I was expecting them in that conversation to kind of say maybe it's time that we make some big moves or something, but instead it was Sims kind of just being like, "Hey man, I can't trust you. I need to trust you," and she's kind of just like, "Yeah, sure, you can trust me," you know, one of those kind of things. But
one way or the other, like she's going to know that he's got his eye on her. How could he possibly, know whether or not he can trust her moving forward? It's kind of crazy. He's
think,
giving relics out to his kid now. Everything's
he's
off
the rails, dude.
He's
off the rails.
He's off
This
the
place
rails.
is gonna explode. So, to your point, I think that if she would have said to him, "Hey, like this is what I want to do. This is why I want to do it. Maybe you're not going to agree because they're the rebels, but let me just tell you my reasoning." He would probably have said, "All right, honey, I agree. Like, you're the brains. Like, thank you for bringing me in on this. Let's do the damn thing." But now it's not great, right? The distrust is there. He played his hand with Bernard. I thought she was going to call him out on that. Like, he called her out for being like, "Hey, don't go to Bernard." And he was like, "You only said that because you don't want him to tell me the truth." She could have came back and been like, "Well, how'd that freaking go for you, bro? He owned you." Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
what's really good? He told you, Common, that Avinash was a better actor than you, and that's why he's the Shadow. How'd that feel?
He was like, "Common, please do your best in this scene. We have a one-on-one, Tim Robbins versus Common. We need you to do your best." And he's like,
Common stepped it up. He stepped it up in this episode. I'll give it to him.
I think he did, but I didn't. The Bernie thing, I didn't like it. He's not a Bernie to me. All right, you put some respect on that name.
Yeah. You better say Bernie with your chest, big dog.
Yeah.
You spent a decade worshiping that guy.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to make it seem like we're glossing over the mechanical side, but not that mechanical had the least going on in this episode, but I do think every episode is pushing the character development and the emotions of a section while also giving you, and by section, I mean, we got down deep, we got up top, we got silo 17. I feel like it's either like each one of those silos is either an emotional chord or there's a lot of information getting thrown at us. And for the sake of the podcast, the emotional chords don't give us much to talk about. But when we look at mechanical, for me at least, it seems as though like this episode was both giving us, when we look at the mechanical side, more of the emotional heartstrings of how this is going to go. And when I say that, it's through the prism of two main areas in my mind. It's the relationship between Sheriff Billings and mechanical, that trust being formed. Him and Hank are becoming a pretty great, good cop, bad cop. I don't even know who's who in that scenario half the time.
Right.
But they're solving cases and helping further mechanicals, really what's at the core of mechanical. But on the flip side, the second piece is also having identified somebody that wronged mechanical, as in the whisperer being the woman behind the food counter, and showing like what is the punishment going to be for someone like that. That's giving you as the viewer, like, they're trying to build the trust of mechanical up to really being like this. Everybody in mechanical is going to start to believe and keep believing that they're really fighting for not just, the truth, but also for a different way of doing things, right? Like she's
Yeah,
not being
yeah.
sent out to clean. She is going to be getting the hell away from the food, right?
Mhm.
She's going to be given a hard task, but they're going to win her allegiance back because they understand at the end of the day, she's being played against her mom. This is you know, what they're going to be able to do from the listener side. Did you get, I don't want to gloss over and we can dive into a little bit more of like the nuts and bolts of what they did in this episode,
Ah, I
but are
like how
you
you
with
did
me?
there. Little
You like
nuts and
that little
bolts for
nuts
the
and bolts?
mechanical. I'm fully with you. I think you did so well at explaining that I don't have much to say. I think there's just so many points given to Knox for this, whether he did it on the spot with his response or not. It's just one of those things where obviously there's a big crowd growing. It was very hostile. Things were going down, and he was able to calm it down. And like you said, I feel like he won over Mechanical in general with his speech because I feel like they do agree. It's a big part of their character as a whole. If you want to call Mechanical a character, it's that we're together. We are who we are. It's us versus the world because for whatever reason, everyone always looks down on us. So, he makes the joke and they're hardened, right? But he's like, we're going to give you some shit. You're going to have some hard things to do. We're going to make you feel bad about it a little bit because we're going to bust some chops. But you're one of us. We know what you did because of your mom. We're going to be okay. And you're going to thank us because you're going to realize we are a family. And one day you'll be back to normal and you won't do it to us again. And he won her over and he won't ever have another person like her being a traitor. But he also won over the fact that now this is a family that's being brought closer together. And it's not just for, hey, we want to get the truth. Exactly like you said. It's more so we are going to look after each other now. Okay. We are under threat and we have to stick together.
I think Knox knows that he would have never been able to give that speech if it wasn't for the work that Hank and Billings did for the good of Mechanical. So it's
Yep.
really like you know, giving us the how this could all work if it was the entire silo operating this way, which
Yes.
is
Yep. Yep.
kind of that utopia type thing that ultimately, to have any war, if we're calling a rebellion a war, your side needs to be united by more than like what's the truth, because when push comes
Right.
to shove, you need to have an emotional connection to what you're fighting for, and I think that is becoming more clear. I also get a kick out of just the banter between Billings and Hank when like they're interrogating the one guy. It's like, you believe him? I'm like, I think I believe
A
him,
little
but
bit.
like Billings is the classic, like he's like, where's the chase and how do I cut to it type cop.
Yeah.
Like just
Yeah.
kind of, sitting back where Hank's, leaning over, kind of like giving him a little bit what for. Oh, you don't want me telling everybody you're a goddamn snitch. What's good? Like,
Yep.
I
Yep.
really enjoyed that dynamic. I think that there could be a really solid spinoff in their future.
Oh, yeah.
On Apple TV Plus, of course.
Covered by the core.
Covered by the core. I don't know, but
Okay.
there's something there. I'll get in touch. We'll get in touch with Hugh after this, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll
But
talk about it. Maybe he'll do a side story for us.
meanwhile, Hank just like bites it in the next episode for all
Yeah.
we know. But um, Kennedy's still here. He's still being cared for by Kathleen Billings, which my wife Brenna really did not appreciate that I was giving Kathleen Billings shit in the last pod. So I do want to say I agree. I know that she is still an important part of the show. She's doing a lot of work with a baby strapped to her chest. I'm just saying I want to know a little bit more about her if she's going to keep
Yeah.
getting in on this. That's all I'm going to. Don't shoot the messenger. But I think that engagement though is good because my wife mentioned she might be mucking it up in the Discord pretty soon. I mean, we need
Ooh.
some people to be shooting us down, other than my boy Delco Nick in there just telling us we're hilarious. Which, I mean,
Yeah,
we're the
Nick's
cool,
our boy,
we
man.
get it, but I also need some people bouncing back at us.
I was gonna say this is actually a good thing to announce. Okay, so bingetowntv.com/discord, jump on there, but also a new feature on Spotify. If you use Spotify for your podcast, you can comment on our podcast, and we've had some comments which I didn't even know existed for a while And
Whoa.
now you can comment on the episodes and give us some of your thoughts. And we had some for From, we have some for Silo, we have some for Dexter. Again, Dexter and From are being covered on Binge Empire, so go check that out. But Silo, if you're on Spotify, comment. We'll comment back and we'll talk to you and we'll shout you on the podcast, because I had no idea that was a feature that, and I know it's newer. So we can comment as Tyler, as Jim, or as the core, as the, we can comment in any way we want. So comment on Spotify podcast and we'll shout you.
Well, look, other than the boiling sexual tension between Knox and Shirley, which, my God, just rev my engines a little bit more while you're at it. And what else are we missing? I just thought of what I just thought of what. Where are we going, Jim? You
Walk.
Yeah, that's what I just realized. We did not hit on Walk. She is looking for any type of answer right now. And she's a liability. She's a liability.
Yeah. This could be very dangerous, Tyler, because if you like your segue, let's walk over to the conversation that she has with some of our people in the mechanical section of the silo, where she's asking, what's the deal here? How's seclusion work? She's asking Billings. She's already gotten these questions answered for her, and she's already been nervous. And now Billings is saying, you don't want these questions to come out. You don't want me to give you any answers because Carla's probably not doing too great, right? And Tyler, we guessed it, or you were theorizing, where is she going to be? Is she going to be in the mines? Is she going to be in seclusion? Is she going to already be dead? Kind of chumpish of you to think she was already dead, but whatever.
The more I think about it, I'm like, damn, that would have hit me. Like, that would have been a good hit. But I can talk.
No, your theory.
Talk to the directors about that, but they are going to use. So turns out they are going to use Walk. She's not done yet. Now she's in seclusion, and she would have been screwed if they did not find that connection, because they have nothing. You almost got the cool scene, but the thought from Bernard of like, there's nothing she's gonna fucking give me that I can trust.
This would be tragic. Now let's spitball here, Tyler. Okay, your actual theory was not that she was going to be dead. It was going to be that she was going to be drugged up and not remember anything, right? What if Walk, one of our freaking cores of this show, right? Man, puns all day.
Easy.
Core of this show.
Easy.
Yeah. One of the cores of the show, core of mechanical, somebody that they relied on, right? Somebody that we didn't think would ever be swayed. What if she actually does end up getting swayed? And then they promise that Carla will be returned to her alive. And when she's returned, she's drugged and she doesn't remember anything. And Walk did this all for almost nothing, right?
Woof. Right, that would be tragic. I got tears welling up just with the thought of it, Jim. But we got the same thought. She's desperate, and
yeah.
There's nothing worse than somebody who you would never suspect. They're rooting out all the listeners. They're now like, whether it be one of the listeners before who was kind of who they caught on to, was scared shitless that the rest of Mechanical was going to know. Now they're showing like this new world order, getting everybody on their side, but they might have a listener in Walk doing some, you might have a new spy in Walk.
They're
she will not be as easy to spot as Cooper. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, no. And they're stacking up the W's. We talked about Bernard stacking up W's in this episode, but Mechanical's been doing pretty well for themselves by the end of this episode. They need something to bring them back down to reality, Tyler. And
all rise, but yeah, they got a farm. They got the listeners on their side. But meanwhile, Walk is about to be sitting in her little
out of their lives.
Okay. Yeah, I think look, I think we hit on all the major topics. I think this was my favorite episode so far because I think it just had a perfect balance of, cool action between Jules, the gunpowder shuttlecraft going up, dropping truth bombs out of it. But all the way down to all the information we got, the inside of the inside of the vault. We got there is a third person there. There's a lot of questions and 3 episodes left in this season, Jim.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. My engine is fully revved.
Three episodes left, and we do know that it was renewed for 2 more seasons. So there's a chance that we are going to have a good amount of open-ended questions, but we can be assured, I would say, that they're going to give us enough, just like season 1, because season 1 was hugely a TV show that gave us a lot of questions, and they made me feel good at the end of season 1 and ready to go for season 2. So I'm trusting the process, Tyler, for all of our Philadelphia fans. I'm trusting the process of the writers, the directors, Hugh Howey, and I think that this season is going to end with a bang, and we'll get enough. And then we'll just have to be sad that there's going to be 2 more seasons and we have to wait for it. Anything else, Tyler? I don't think we're doing nitpicks. I don't think we really have any.
No. I just want to say, all joking aside, Dave, love you. Hope you're having a great time with family. All of our listeners that have, have plugged in to maybe have something to go along their gift wrapping, and now after the holidays, as you're hopefully getting some rest and relaxation, you got some silo pods to listen to. I just want to say happy holidays and happy new year to everyone. And to Jim, I love you, buddy. I'm ready to continue this this part of being the secret sauce and the core of the binge empire.
Perfectly said.
I'm ready.
Perfectly said. I love you too, Dave. We love you, man. Can't wait to have you back for episode 8. We'll have a little bit of a segment at the beginning of that episode to hear what you have to say about your thoughts, because we know this was a huge episode and we want to hear what you have to say about it. And hopefully episode 8 will be just as good. So we'll have a hugely great podcast to talk about. Also,
it'll be cool.
Guys,
it'll be cool, Jim.
It'll be super cool, Neato Burrito. And guys, this week, I'm going to drop the silo on the core, but also, since we had the first 8 minutes of Severance, full disclosure, me, Tyler, and Dave, I can't speak for Dave because he's not on this podcast currently right now, but me and Tyler are not going to watch the first 8 minutes of the episode. I believe Luke will not either, and Luke will be on the Severance podcast with us. Luke will be joining the core. But in honor of that, we are going to have the pitch town that was dropped a couple years ago for the pilot of Severance, where your main man right here, Tyler, made one of. Was this your debut to the podcast?
It may have been, or maybe the Oscars one before, or maybe like the Emmys one before that. But
yeah,
it was one of the first.
And for anybody who hasn't listened to any of our pitch towns, what we do is we have a special guest come onto the podcast, or one of our current co-hosts come onto the podcast and pitch the pilot of one of their favorite TV shows to the hosts who have never seen it before. The host will then watch it. We'll talk about it. And then at the end of the episode, we decide if we're going to binge immediately, add it to the list, or say, sorry, bro, I'm out, and explain why. So for Severance, we did that. And I'm not going to spoil our thoughts, but spoiler alert, we're going to cover season 2. So maybe we're
launched an entire podcast strand.
Yeah, exactly. We love Apple TV, and we launched an entire podcast off the back of Severance, pretty much, and Silo and Dark Matter. But guys, check that out. I'll drop Silo, then I'm going to drop the Severance episode. If you need some more Severance content, check it out. And then also in the next couple weeks, we'll be doing a season 2, season 1, little teeny recap / season 2 preview for Severance to get us ready for January 17th. That will all be right here on the Core Podcast, covering all things Apple TV. So hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, guys, we have a couple other podcasts. If you want to check them out, Binge Empire, Reality Town, the Final Form podcast. Binge Empire covers everything that's not really our Apple, our anime, or our reality, but it's mainly our darker dramas for now. We have Reality Town covering The Traders coming up, and we have the Anime Final Form podcast covering Solo Leveling in January. So we have a lot coming up. So guys, for now, just hit the subscribe button on the Core, because we're the Core, all right? We'll see you next week. Once again, we are not Bingetown TV. That's now our network. We are the Core Podcast. And thank you so much for listening.